Rewire your brain to outsmart anyone. 10 rules for absolute power. You are surrounded by people who underestimate you. Your coworkers. Your competitors. Maybe even your own family. And here's the truth no one wants to say out loud: most of them will stay exactly where they are for the rest of their lives. Not because they lack intelligence. Not because they weren't given opportunities. But because they never learned how to use their minds as a weapon. Today, that changes for you. What I'm about to share with you are 10 rules, not motivational fluff, not recycled self-help advice, but 10 cognitive principles used by the most powerful minds in history. Stoic emperors. Chess grandmasters. Billionaire founders. Military strategists. Shadow negotiators. These are the rules they never teach you in school. The rules the powerful use quietly while everyone else is busy scrolling, reacting, and waiting for life to happen to them. By the end of this video, you will think differently. You will see conversations differently. You will see opportunities that were invisible to you before. But first, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button right now. Because what I'm building on this channel is not just content. It is a mental revolution. And you do not want to miss a single piece of it. Now, let's begin. The human brain is not fixed. Science has proven this. Neuroplasticity is real. Your brain physically rewires itself based on the thoughts you think repeatedly, the patterns you practice, and the mental frameworks you adopt. This means one thing: you can choose to become sharper. You can choose to become more strategic. You can train yourself to see 3 moves ahead while everyone else is still reacting to move 1. The 10 rules I'm sharing today are a complete system. Each one builds on the last. Skip one and you weaken the whole structure. So stay with me from beginning to end. Let's go. Rule 1: silence is your first weapon. Most people believe that the loudest voice in the room holds the most power. They are wrong. Think about the most powerful people you've ever encountered. The CEO who says little in a meeting but everyone hangs on their words. The negotiator who lets silence stretch uncomfortably long before the other side cracks and makes concessions. The mentor whose one quiet sentence changed your life more than 100 loud speeches. Power does not announce itself. Power does not need to prove itself. Power simply is. The ancient Stoics understood this. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, wrote in his private journal, a journal he never intended for anyone to read, that one of his greatest goals was to speak only when words improved upon silence. He was the most powerful man in the Western world and he spent his life practicing restraint of speech. Here's what silence does that words cannot. First, silence forces others to fill the space. Human beings are biologically wired to be uncomfortable with silence. When you stay quiet after someone speaks, they will talk more. They will explain themselves further. They will often reveal information they never intended to share, their insecurities, their true position, their weaknesses. Second, silence signals confidence. People who are nervous, insecure, or seeking approval talk constantly. They fill every pause. They over-explain. They qualify everything they say. The moment you learn to sit comfortably in silence, you project a level of confidence that most people have never cultivated. Third, silence gives you time to think while others are reacting. This is perhaps its greatest power. When you are not busy crafting your next sentence while someone is still speaking, you can actually listen. You can process. You can formulate a response that is precise, strategic, and impactful, rather than emotional and impulsive. Practical exercise for this week: in every conversation you have, before you respond, pause for 2 full seconds. It will feel uncomfortable at first. Do it anyway. Watch what happens to how people perceive you. The person who masters silence masters the room. Rule 2: control your information, control your world. We live in the most information-saturated era in human history. The average person consumes over 11 hours of media every single day. News, social media, podcasts, videos, opinions, predictions, outrage, noise. And yet, despite all this information, most people are less informed about what actually matters than at any previous point in their lives. Here's why: volume is not the same as value. The people who outsmart others are not the ones who consume the most information. They are the ones who consume the right information, filter ruthlessly, and then use what they know with precision. There is a concept from military intelligence called signal versus noise. In any battle environment, there is an enormous amount of data: enemy movements, weather conditions, civilian reports, satellite images. Most of it is noise. The rare intelligence officer who can consistently identify the signal, the one piece of data that actually matters, wins wars. You need to become that person in your own life. This means 3 things. First, curate your inputs with obsessive intentionality. Stop consuming information passively. Every podcast, every article, every conversation should be evaluated. Is this making me sharper, more capable, more knowledgeable about what I'm building? If not, cut it without guilt. Second, develop pattern recognition by studying history. The patterns of human behavior have not changed in thousands of years. Power, betrayal, ambition, loyalty, collapse, these cycles repeat. The person who studies history is never truly surprised because they've seen every play before. Third, control what information you give others. This is where most people make catastrophic errors. They overshare. They explain their plans before executing them. They reveal their vulnerabilities in moments of emotional trust. The ancient principle remains true: keep your cards close. Let your results speak. Share strategically, not emotionally. Information is currency. The person who manages that currency wisely will always be 3 steps ahead. Rule 3: think in systems, not events. Here is the single biggest cognitive difference between people who consistently win and people who consistently struggle. Struggling people react to events. Winning people think in systems. When something goes wrong in a struggling person's life, they ask, why did this bad thing happen to me? They focus on the specific event. They process it emotionally. They move on, without understanding the underlying pattern that created it. When something goes wrong in a systems thinker's life, they ask, what pattern produced this outcome, and how do I change the system so it doesn't produce this outcome again? Do you see the difference? One person keeps encountering the same problems in slightly different forms. The other person breaks the cycle permanently. Ray Dalio, founder of the world's largest hedge fund, built his entire career on this principle. He called it the loop: experience a bad outcome, pause and analyze the underlying cause, update your mental model, create a principle, and apply that principle going forward. He did this obsessively, for decades, and built an organization worth hundreds of billions of dollars. You can apply this to every area of your life. Relationships that keep ending in the same painful way, that is a system failure. Health that you keep neglecting despite repeated intentions to change, that is a system failure. Financial decisions that keep leading to the same stress, that is a system failure. Events are symptoms. Systems are causes. When you start seeing the systems underneath your life, you gain the power to redesign them. And when you can redesign your systems, you can redesign your outcomes. This week, identify one recurring problem in your life and ask yourself, what is the system producing this result? Write it down. Then ask, what would I need to change about that system? That question alone will put you ahead of 90% of people around you. Rule 4: master the architecture of influence. Every interaction you have is an act of influence. Whether you are conscious of it or not. When you walk into a room, you influence how people feel about being there. When you send a message, you influence how the recipient responds. When you make a decision in front of your team, you influence the culture of your organization. The question is never whether you are influencing, you always are. The question is whether you are doing it intentionally or accidentally. The people who outsmart everyone else are masters of intentional influence. They understand human psychology deeply enough to shape outcomes without force, without manipulation, and without anyone feeling coerced. Here is the foundation of real influence. People do not respond primarily to logic. They respond to emotion, identity, and social proof. Logic is the justification people give after they have already made an emotional decision. If you want to move people, you must speak to what they want to feel, who they want to be, and what the people they respect are doing. This is not manipulation. Manipulation deceives people for your benefit at their expense. True influence aligns your goals with the genuine interests of others. The best leaders, the best teachers, the best communicators in history all understood this. They found the overlap between what they needed and what their audience deeply wanted, and they spoke directly to that overlap. Practical principle: before any important conversation, ask yourself 3 questions. What does this person most want to feel? What identity do they want to protect? What decision would the people they respect most make in this situation? Answer those 3 questions and you will know exactly how to frame your message. Robert Cialdini spent his entire career studying this. His research showed that influence follows predictable psychological patterns: reciprocity, commitment, social proof, authority, liking, and scarcity. These patterns are not tricks. They are the operating system of human decision-making. Learn the operating system. Work with it. And you will find that doors that seemed closed to everyone else open easily for you. Rule 5. Develop radical situational awareness. Most people go through their lives watching approximately 30% of what is actually happening around them. They are absorbed in their own thoughts, their own narratives, their own anxieties. They miss the micro-expression that flashed across someone's face for half a second. They miss the subtle shift in energy when a topic changes. They miss the pattern of behavior that has been repeating for months. The people who consistently outsmart others are not necessarily more intelligent in the traditional sense. They are more awake. They see more. They notice what others filter out. This is situational awareness, and it can be trained. Sherlock Holmes is a fictional character, but the cognitive principles Arthur Conan Doyle built him on are real. Holmes's superpower was not deduction in the way most people think of it. His superpower was observation. He noticed everything: the callus on a man's hand, the mud on a boot, the hesitation before a word, the way someone's eyes moved when they told a story. From those observations, he built models of reality that were far more accurate than anything anyone else around him could construct. You can do the same. Start with people. When you're in a conversation, train yourself to notice the physical signals: posture, breathing rate, eye movement, micro-expressions. These signals are often more honest than words. The body does not lie as easily as the mouth. Then expand to environments. Walk into any room and spend the first 60 seconds simply observing before engaging. Where is the power sitting? Who defers to whom? What is the emotional temperature of the room? What is being avoided? Then expand to patterns over time. Track how specific people behave in specific types of situations. Most people are far more predictable than they believe themselves to be. When you know someone's pattern, you can predict their next move before they make it. This is not paranoia. This is precision. And precision is power. Rule 6. Embrace strategic discomfort. Your comfort zone is a cage disguised as safety. Every meaningful level of power, capability, and wisdom you will ever develop in your life will come from doing things that felt uncomfortable before you could do them. Every single time. The brain does not grow in comfort. The brain grows in challenge. When you expose yourself to situations that stretch your current capabilities, your neurons literally form new connections. You become physically more capable of handling complexity. This is why the most powerful people in any field deliberately seek difficulty. They take on projects that are slightly beyond their current ability. They have conversations they would rather avoid. They put themselves in rooms where they are not yet the most knowledgeable person. They voluntarily practice the skills they are worst at rather than spending all their time on their strengths. The Stoics called this negative visualization and voluntary discomfort. Marcus Aurelius would periodically restrict his own diet, sleep on a hard surface, and refuse comfort, not because he had to, but to prove to himself that his peace of mind was not dependent on external conditions. This practice has a profound psychological effect. When you voluntarily endure discomfort, you stop fearing it. And when you stop fearing discomfort, you gain access to an enormous range of actions that are simply unavailable to people who live in avoidance. The person who fears hard conversations will always be at the mercy of people who don't. The person who fears judgment will always be limited by the opinions of people who are watching. The person who fears failure will never take the risks required for extraordinary outcomes. Strategic discomfort is the practice of choosing your hard things rather than having hard things chosen for you by default. Every week, identify one uncomfortable thing you have been avoiding. Then do it first. Not eventually. First. That habit, practiced consistently, will transform your life in ways that are difficult to overstate. Rule 7. Guard your mental energy like your life depends on it. Your mental energy is your most finite and most valuable resource. More valuable than money. More valuable than time. Because without it, you cannot effectively use either. And yet most people treat their mental energy as if it were unlimited, draining it on decisions that don't matter, relationships that deplete them, content that adds nothing, and worries about things they cannot control. The most effective minds in the world are ruthless about this. Barack Obama famously wore only gray or blue suits during his presidency. His reasoning was direct: he had too many important decisions to make to waste cognitive energy on what to wear. Steve Jobs did the same with his black turtleneck and jeans. These were not fashion statements. They were cognitive strategies. Decision fatigue is real. Every decision you make, regardless of how small, depletes a finite pool of mental resources. By the end of a day filled with dozens of small decisions, your capacity for high-quality thinking on important matters is dramatically diminished. The strategy is systematization. Wherever possible, remove decisions from your daily life through habits, routines, and systems. What you eat in the morning. What time you work on your most important projects. How you structure your week. When these things are decided in advance, you preserve your mental energy for the problems and opportunities that actually matter. Beyond decisions, guard your attention fiercely. Every time you allow your attention to be pulled, by a notification, by an irrelevant conversation, by the emotional drama of people who are not contributing to your goals, you are giving away a piece of your cognitive capacity. The single most powerful productivity shift I have ever witnessed in high-performing people is not a better system or a new tool. It is the decision to protect deep, focused, uninterrupted work time with the same ferocity they would protect their physical safety. When your mind is clear, rested, and focused, you think at a level that is simply not accessible to people who are mentally scattered and depleted. Guard that capacity. It is the engine of everything. Rule 8. Become unreadable, become unpredictable. Predictability is a vulnerability. When people can anticipate your every move, your reactions, your decisions, your emotional triggers, they can control the conditions of your life. They know how to provoke you. They know when you'll back down. They know what you'll accept and what you'll refuse. The person who is perfectly readable is the person who can be perfectly managed. This doesn't mean you need to be erratic or unstable. Those are weaknesses masquerading as unpredictability. True strategic unpredictability means that while your values and principles remain rock solid, your tactics, your responses, and your decisions are genuinely difficult for others to forecast. Think of it in terms of poker. The worst poker players are the ones with tells, the involuntary signals that betray their hand. A slight hesitation when they're bluffing. An increased confidence when they hold the winning cards. Their face, their body language, their betting patterns give them away before they ever show their cards. The great poker players are the ones who have eliminated their tells. Their face is the same whether they're holding the best hand at the table or nothing at all. You cannot read them. You cannot predict them. And that means you cannot beat them, because beating someone requires being able to model what they're going to do. Apply this principle to your professional and social life. Stop making your responses automatic. When someone pushes you emotionally, the automatic response is to react immediately. The strategic response is to pause, choose, and respond in a way that serves your actual interests, not your momentary emotional impulse. Stop telegraphing your plans. People who announce their goals and intentions before they achieve them are giving others the opportunity to position against them. Let your execution announce your plans. And most importantly, surprise people regularly. Not randomly, but strategically. Make a generous gesture when none is expected. Take a firm position when everyone expects you to accommodate. Move in a direction no one anticipated. These moments of genuine surprise are the moments that build awe, respect, and a subtle but powerful sense in others that you are always operating at a level they cannot quite see. Rule 9. Build your mind like an asset. Every other asset you could accumulate, money, property, status, relationships, can be taken from you. Your mind cannot. Viktor Frankl survived the Nazi concentration camps. He lost everything: his family, his home, his manuscripts, his freedom. And yet he emerged from that experience with a level of psychological depth and wisdom that produced one of the most influential books of the 20th century. Because the one thing no external circumstance could destroy was what he had built inside himself. The people who consistently outsmart everyone around them are people who have invested relentlessly in their own minds. Not just academic knowledge, though that matters. But the full architecture of mental capability, emotional intelligence, critical thinking, historical perspective, philosophical depth, creative capacity, and the ability to hold complexity without collapsing into oversimplification. Here is how you build this asset systematically. Read every day. Not skimming. Deep reading, books that require your full attention and challenge your existing mental models. The best return on investment in human history is a library of great books consumed with genuine intention. History, philosophy, psychology, biography, science. Read widely and synthesize aggressively. Reflect every day. Writing is thinking. The act of putting your observations, your questions, and your principles into words forces a level of clarity that thinking alone cannot produce. Keep a journal, not a diary, but a thinking journal. Work through your ideas in writing. You will be astonished at what you discover about your own mind. Seek mentors and teachers aggressively. The fastest way to develop capability is to spend time with people who are already operating at the level you're aspiring to. Their thinking patterns, their habits of mind, their way of framing problems, these transfer through proximity in ways that no book can fully replicate. And challenge your own beliefs regularly. The most dangerous limitation on any mind is the belief that it already understands things correctly. The most powerful minds in history were all characterized by an extraordinary willingness to question their own assumptions, abandon positions they had previously held, and update their worldview in response to evidence. Your mind is your most important asset. Invest in it daily. Protect it fiercely. And watch the return on that investment compound every single year of your life. Rule 10. Play the long game. Everything we have talked about today comes down to this final rule. The rule that separates people who occasionally win from people who consistently dominate across time. Play the long game. We live in a culture that is obsessed with the immediate. Instant results. Viral moments. Quick wins. Rapid growth. And while there is nothing wrong with efficiency, the obsession with immediacy produces a fundamental strategic blindness. It causes people to optimize for the short term at the catastrophic expense of the long term. The people who truly outsmart everyone around them are thinking on a different time horizon. They are making decisions today based not on what maximizes the next 30 days but on what positions them most advantageously 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now. This changes everything. It changes which relationships you invest in, because the person who seems most immediately useful is rarely the person who will matter most to your trajectory over a decade. It changes which skills you develop, because the skills that are most valuable right now are not always the ones that will be most valuable when the landscape shifts. It changes how you handle conflict, because winning a short-term argument while damaging a long-term relationship is one of the most common and most expensive mistakes intelligent people make. It changes how you build your reputation, because reputation compounds. Every single interaction you have is either adding to or subtracting from a balance that will determine what becomes possible for you years from now. The Stoics called this amor fati, love of fate. Not passive acceptance of whatever happens, but a deep understanding that everything happening right now is part of a longer arc, and your job is not to react to the moment but to navigate wisely across time. Warren Buffett has been making investment decisions for over 70 years. His secret is not intelligence alone, though he is extraordinarily intelligent. His secret is time horizon. He buys assets that most investors would never have the patience to hold. While others are thinking about next quarter, he is thinking about the next decade. And across 7 decades, that difference in time horizon has produced results that seem almost supernatural to people who are still optimizing for the short term. Play the long game in everything. Be patient with your growth. Be consistent with your habits. Be strategic about your relationships. Be intentional about your reputation. And compound your advantages over time with the quiet, relentless confidence of someone who knows that the person who wins in the end is not the one who sprinted fastest in the first mile, but the one who kept moving forward, intelligently and deliberately, long after everyone else had stopped. Let's bring this together. 10 rules for rewiring your brain and developing absolute power over your outcomes. Silence is your first weapon. Control your information. Think in systems, not events. Master the architecture of influence. Develop radical situational awareness. Embrace strategic discomfort. Guard your mental energy. Become unreadable and unpredictable. Build your mind like an asset. And above all, play the long game. These are not passive ideas. They are practices. They require daily commitment. They require patience. They require the willingness to do the uncomfortable work that most people will not do. But you are not most people. The fact that you are still here, 80 minutes into this video, tells me that you are serious about this. That you want more than average. That you are ready to operate at a level most people never reach. So here is what I need you to do right now. If this video added value to your thinking, and I believe it did, hit the subscribe button. Right now. Because this channel exists for one purpose, to give you the mental tools that the most powerful minds in history use to think, decide, and win at the highest levels. Every week, I am releasing content that will challenge your thinking, sharpen your strategy, and give you frameworks that most people will never encounter. You do not want to miss it. Subscribe. Turn on notifications. And share this video with someone in your life who you believe is ready to level up their mind. The game is long. The work is worth it. And the best time to start is always now. I'll see you in the next one.